Hi to everybody. I'm Ademar, Albertin from EXIN. So I would like to say welcome to all you connected with us by listening and watching this webinar. I'm so sorry that I'm not on the video today, but I can guarantee that this is not going to be a major difficulty for you to understand all the content. So here we are, me and Rita. And then, first of all, I'd like to briefly explain the EXIN portfolio. The EXIN portfolio is formed by 4 different domains. The first one is security, compliance and risk, agile principles and culture, tech mobile savviness, and business intelligence and processes. And today, we are going to focus, of course, on the security, compliance, and the risk that belongs to our program EXIN Privacy and Data Protection. That is the one regarding to the DPO certification as well. So before to dive into the content, I always would like to do some kind of major thought to everybody. I liked a lot of this quote from Fred Wilson that states that companies that do the best job on managing a user privacy will ultimately be the most successful. So I would like you, by seeing this statement, to go backwards 10 years ago when we were using internet, and then when we were being more aggressive in the digital campaigns itself. For that time, 10 years ago, we were doing many activities to get personal details from the people by accessing our website to check whitelist if they were interested in our products or services and so on. But many times it was way simple to get the personal details, because basically we just put a simple form like I drop your email over here and then go to subscribe for our newsletter. But this, it's not the reality anymore, since the GDPR is out there, especially over here in Europe. We need to follow so many procedures and controls that are in place to guarantee that users and customers, clients, they are protected regarding to the legislation that is out there. So if in the past we didn't have to manage really well the personal details from our customers, now this is the moment. And if you're not doing so, how can you be so successful in your digital marketing campaigns? It's almost impossible to think about a digital campaign without not gathering some data about the behaviors, about the tastes, about how they use our products and services. It's definitely impossible. So for the companies that would like to be out there in the market by offering digital services or products, they will need to definitely follow the guidelines provided by the government. Doesn't matter in which country you are in, you need to know at least a brief introduction of what GDPR is, what it is the legislation of your country, or for those that are the responsible on managing the data, they will need to dig more deeper towards the content and the legislations that are out there. And if you think about, okay, so is it enough for me to understand the legislation of my country? Definitely not, because, well, as you are very much aware, we as citizens, we do not respect barriers. Many people from many different citizenships are living in many different countries out there. But the citizenships out there, so you are gathering data from many people from many different citizenships that the laws out there and needs to be followed. So you need to understand at least the main laws that are out there to guarantee that the right controls are going to be taken in place. Otherwise, you are going to be out of the market. So again, you can be only successful if you are doing the best on managing the user's privacy. So if we take a look on the trends that are there, I did research this week to get the best of the trends to be presented for you. And according to the PwC, the EU has become the dominant regulator around the world in data privacy. But why is that? First of all, the EU bloc is a strong block in the economy of the current world. And secondly, EU gave one of the first steps regarding to privacy legislation. So when Europe decided to launch the GDPR, they said, okay, there is one important thing though. It's not only valid for EU itself, but for any country or company that would like to do business within the EU, you need to follow the GDPR. And even though you are not doing business, but you are gathering data from Europeans, you must follow the GDPR. So the GDPR do not only forces the European companies itself to follow the guidelines, but any other company. And there is no exception regarding to this. And the fines are out there in the market, and many companies already had to pay fines to the EU itself. And then, according to Gartner, by the year of 2020, more than 1 million organizations will have appointed at least one privacy officer or data protection officer. I would like you to keep in mind this naming, data protection officer, because sometimes we take a look on the DPO itself as data protection officer, sometimes privacy officer, sometimes privacy and data protection officer. We can name it as many names that we would like to, but all of them, they need to take care of the data and the laws and the compliance itself. So it doesn't matter which one it is, this is the name. So it doesn't matter much. The role itself matters, the activities, and of course the controls that are out there. But if you think about, again, 10 years ago, how many times we were struggling to define who is going to be the responsible for the privacy of our users. Even in our widest dreams, we were not thinking about this. That's fine that we were caring and trying to manage as much as we can based on the information security controls that were out there, based on the ISO 27001 or other standards, but not so much in deep as we are doing right now. And then over here, I would like to drag your attention to the fact that doesn't matter from which background you are. You can be from IT, you can be from marketing, you can be from finance. All you are managing or using your customer data to do any activity at your organization. So how much successful can a company be by the end of 2022 if the employees of the organizations are not aware about which controls are in place and why they are there, why they are important? Because many times I will always insist and always used to insist that to implement a control is usually the easiest activity that can be done or must take place. But I think the most challenging is to explain for all the employees, to all your workforce, why the controls are there and why they must be followed. What are the consequences and the impact if they are not followed? So only by doing so, people are going to start to react accordingly to the GDPR or any other control implemented at organizations. So if we narrow down to understand how big is this market just now, I'm not saying by the end of 2022, I'm talking about just now, the current date. If you take a look on this slide, I took this screenshot on the May the 13th of this year. And then only at the European Union, we have 755,000 jobs available. If we take a look at the USA market, we have more than 31,381 jobs available. It's a lot. Basically, it's about 15,000 jobs available just at the time that we are speaking right now. And this is only going to grow. But if you take a look on the descriptions over there, we're going to see that some organizations are looking specifically for data protection officer, DPO. Some of them it's calling senior data protection manager, data protection leader, IT privacy and data protection manager. So as I said before, you can name it as much as you'd like to, but what matters in the end of the day are going to be the competences of the workforce and the employees. And when I talk about this, it's about any level of the organization. Because, for example, if you think about an organization that has a service desk or a call center, they are managing data, they are handling data of your customers. If you think about the employees, the workforce that produces reports to understand the behavior from the consumer or the client of the organization, they are also handling data. When you think about the marketeers, they are also even more handling data to launch a great campaign and successful campaign for a service or for a product, doesn't matter. If you are thinking about the C-level of the organization, in the end of the day, they will handle data as well, because they're going to be aware about the reports, about what's going on, and what products needs to be developed based on facts and not based on only thoughts. So thinking about these and the website structure, the campaigns structure, thinking about all the daily basis activity, if we compare what it is the most important thing, the certification, the knowledge, the competence, the title, the name, if I may say, I would say that the competence is one of the most strongest thing that an organization can develop towards their employee. And this is something that we were always worried at EXIN, because when we decide to launch or to do something regarding to professionals, because this is part of our DNA, is to drive the professionals to achieve their best and develop the major competences that is possible to be achieved. We always think from the end to the beginning about, okay, what would we like to achieve with this? And by doing this, then we go backwards, and then we can define a good thing that it's going to be suitable for the markets to not develop the knowledge, because the knowledge it's easier than the competence, but we look straight forward for the competence itself to guarantee that all these jobs that we're seeing over there, it's going to be fulfilled with competent workforce, not only on the operational level, but for any level at organizations. So now I would like to reassure you why the privacy and data protection matters. First, the market is also looking for the privacy and data protection specialists and generalists. Why specialists and generalists itself? This is regarding to what I said before, because every single organization, according to Gartner, it's going to have at least 1 million DPOs hired at the organization. These are the specialists, okay, are the ones that are in charge of the implementations, or they are in charge to guarantee the controls and the improvements they are out there. It's not just implemented in just one go, because doesn't matter, it could be an ISO, it could be GDPR, it could be any legislation or controls. Doesn't matter if you implement it in the state of the art, if you are not evolving by the time, if you're not improving by the time, things must be kept and improved. So we also need the generalists, that are usually the ones that are not the specialists, but they are handling the customer and the client data. They also need to be aware of the controls, and as I said before again, why the controls are out there, because otherwise a specialist will not be able to run and to improve anything. Second point, jobs aren't related only to DPOs itself, but you are going to see many job descriptions out there that, for example, they are looking for a digital marketeer, and then requires also knowledge regarding to privacy legislation. They are looking up for an IT employee. They are going to know also about the privacy legislation. They are looking for lawyers. The lawyer also needs to know about the legislations itself regarding to privacy. So you can look it up just now as we speak on Google or on LinkedIn, jobs available for DPOs. But if you only put like a privacy and data protection, you're going to find loads of other jobs as well. So the ocean is out there, and it's a blue ocean for those that are knowing and developing their competences regarding to the privacy and data protection legislations. And this is available for many different professionals: marketeers, IT, lawyers, sales, call centers, service desk, and so on. So you can name it, everything over here. The most important thing is that anyone handling information, they must understand at least the basics of the legislations that are out there. So I would like to call Rita to explain the Data Protection Officer program. Rita?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Ademar. So Ademar said that we are thinking about competences. How can we promote competences in data protection with people, with our candidates, and with our students? And so what we do with our certifications is that we test competencies. And with this certification, the data protection officer, we are actually testing in three different modules, so to say. The Privacy and Data Protection Foundation, uh, also on a foundation level, general information security management, and on a higher level, an advanced level, the privacy and data protection practitioner. So you can see that the scope is wider here than only data protection, and there's also a difference in levels. So competences are tested on different levels. And what we also find important is what Ademar also mentioned, is that we do not only test knowledge, we do not test knowledge of the GDPR, because, well, anyone can study the GDPR and answer questions about it if you study long enough. But we do want to test understanding of the GDPR. What Ademar said as why is it so important to protect data, and specifically personal data. And in the end, it comes down to that we want to respect people. We also, as individuals, we are also data subjects. So we also want to be respected by the organizations that we give our data to. And we know that we give a lot of organizations permission to use that data. And so on the other hand, even if you are not a professional in data protection, it would be good to realize how which rights we have over our own data, and how sometimes we so easily give it away, and maybe we should be a little bit more careful about that. But I want to go a little bit deeper into the different modules that compose together the data protection officer. If you do exams for these three modules, then automatically you get the certificate of the data protection officer. So I want to go first a little bit deeper into the two data protection modules themselves. And the foundation module is pretty basics. It's basic. It's about the fundamentals, and it's dealing with the definitions and what is personal data, and some principles of what are the grounds and purpose limitations for organizations to gather personal data. And in fact, the purpose of this is that you speak the same language. So that if you talk about personal data, that everyone in the organization knows what you mean, and you also want to communicate with your colleagues, and but also with your stakeholders. And for example, your customers, your consumers, your the boards that you are dealing with competitors, maybe even. And for example, at EXIN, we are, of course, we have communication with candidates, and we know that if a candidate wants to have an insight in what kind of data we are gathering about them, that we are obliged to hand that data over, and that there are terms for that. But so the candidate has a right to see that data, and so everyone within EXIN needs to know that this candidate has the right to see what data we are gathering around them. So those are the fundamental concepts that we need to know. Then of course, it's about how to organize data protection. What do you do with your data? And for example, if you share data with maybe you have branches in other parts of in this case we're talking about Europe, but of course from Europe we could also have a branch in the US. And so then we are dealing with binding corporate rules, because this has to be registered in a contract. How do we exchange and how do we protect personal data that is exchanged between countries outside of Europe? And within Europe, there are agreements on how we deal with personal data, but that's also something to be aware of. Then there are practices of data protection, data protection by design and by default. That's a concept that has been introduced by the GDPR in Europe, and people sometimes ask what is the difference between design and default, and in a way I think that it's actually the same, because it means that from the start and as a principle you build securing and protecting personal data in. And a real nice example, the pictures that you see here, and also from the data protection officer, they are actually badges that we hand out, and they are well protected, because they are in a kind of a type of a blockchain system. And you know about blockchain that it is quite secure. You cannot tamper with it, and so somebody from outside can always check whether I do have this certificate, because of this EXID system that we have for badges. So you can really believe that a person has this certification when you check the badge of that person. It's a very nice example of having data protection by design, because it is a protection has been built in, and it is also by default, because we want to have such a secure system. And then a data protection impact assessment on the foundation level. You need to know what that actually is, and you could compare it with a risk assessment. And well, for example, we have online exams, and you can understand that they are web-based, so you can understand that there are many security measures around that, because we don't want people to cheat, and not because we do not want them to cheat, but we want to maintain the value of the certification. So we have to think about the risks that we have when we offer exams online. And on that higher level, there is the practitioner, and that means that knowledge but also skills come in the picture. So they are tested on another level, and they are actually testing the ability of candidates to apply all that knowledge that we have and understanding that we have gathered on this foundation level. Are you really able to apply this in your work, in your daily activities. So then now we cover policies, because you also want to inform the outside world about how you are dealing with data protection. And as Ademar also mentioned, it is a very strong point in your marketing, that you can show what what measures you actually have in place, and how you are protecting the data of your customers. Um, so it's about managing and organizing data protection. And so data protection in the GDPR also has a management system. And well, you can compare that with a quality management system like the 9001, or IT service management 20000, or even closer, information security 27001. And there is there are already variations of the 27001, which are dealing with privacy, data protection, and which looks very much like the GDPR. So they are growing towards each other. Very important, of course, is the role of the controller, the processor, and the data protection officer. What are the responsibilities of a DPO, which is yeah, of course, a very important subject if you want to be a DPO, or if you are a DPO already, you got that role. Um, a data protection impact assessment. It's again, it's a risk, actually a risk assessment of the core processes that you have in your organization. For example, at EXIN, one of our core processes is development of certifications. And well, in the development process, for example, we are dealing with subject matter experts who are helping us, and we need to protect the personal information about these subject matter experts. And of course, there's the examination process. We need to protect the rights of all those candidates who do our exams within EXIN, because we have registered really personal data, because we have to identify a person, for example, on their birth date. And birth date together, with a name and an address, it leads to a uniquely identifiable person. And so that is personal data. And then finally, it's about data breaches, and how do you deal with the supervisory authority in your area of authority, and incident response. How do you want people who are working in the organization to report incidents and that might be to the DPO, and it needs a process. And when the incident is reported internally, then it also has to, if it's a big, a large impact incident, it has to be communicated with the supervisory authority. And so there are actions that need to be done. And because this is this is on the level of skills, training is mandatory here, because in the training you have to do practical assignments, so that you can both learn and also show your skills. And for this practitioner training, there are some example practical assignments. The trainer can also do other assignments, but they need to be on this level. And the example practical assignments are, for example, to create a data breach response plan, or to perform a DPIA, data protection impact assessment, for a main process. So the other module for the data protection officer is the information security management foundation. And well, why is this one in the program? But I think that we can all think about reasons why to do this. First of all, information is valuable, and data is valuable, and we start to realize that more and more. Like Ademar said, 20, 30 years ago, we just gave away our data, and we also just gathered data, and we were not aware of the also the financial value of our information. But now we are, and I think, for example, of exam questions that we have. Uh, uh, one exam question has a financial value. It has been developed. Someone has taken time to develop it. They are using a body of knowledge that had to be written. It has to be. It needs a test theoretical approach to make it a good exam question. Many people are working on an exam question because before it goes live into the world, and when when it is stolen and it appears on the internet somewhere together with the answer, then for us it's lost. It doesn't have any value anymore, because an exam question is testing the skills and the competences of people. And if it doesn't do that anymore, then it doesn't have any value, because we cannot give a certificate based on that anymore. So it's also about threats and risks, and as we saw for data protection, there are also many risks, especially in the core processes of organization. And the relationship between threats and risks and reliability of information is an important subject to consider. Information security also has an organization. There has to be a policy. There has to be an organization who is doing what regarding security. There's again the incident management process, and it can, of course, you already hear, it can be very well combined, because if you have a good incident management process, then from people who work at the organization, then if it's also an internal incident management process, then they know how to report data breaches also. Measures, which kind of measures can you take? Of course, many of these measures also protect personal data. For example, there can be physical security measures, like there's a lock on the door, or you have to do an iris scan before you can enter the building. These are also protecting personal data. Technical measures, like the EXID example that I mentioned, the badge. It is actually a technical way of protecting personal data, because there is no personal data being moved with those technical measures, but they are just being checked. So that's a very secure solution. And there are organizational measures, procedures who are important. And finally, it's legislation, because of course, as citizens, we are all obliged to know the law, but if you are active in a management system like this, or you are responsible for information security or data protection, then you also need to understand the legislation and the regulations for these subjects, because you want to comply, and your stakeholders also want you to comply. And so it is a marketing tool, but it is also showing that you are respecting your stakeholders and your customers and the people, your employees. So it's all about respect for people, that that we want to test competences in this whole program. And now I'm giving you back to Ademar.
Thank you very much, Rita. So then, now continuing, why privacy and data protection, or DPO certification? So first of all, by having the trained workforce or certified workforce will prevent organizations to get loads of fine, and then also to suffer with a massive reputation loss. That I think this is one of the most important thing, though, because to pay the fine, you can organizations can pay the fine, but the reputation, it's simply too complicated to be recovered once it's out there and then lost. And then, of course, the GDPR is forcing organizations to go above and beyond a next level of marketing or digital strategies. So, of course, the GDPR is providing the new leap for the organizations to accelerate the digital transformation. And then we'll empower employees to deliver a better service to their customers by letting the customer know that the data is being well handled by the organization. So then, why from EXIN itself? Uh, I have to say that we provide not only the knowledge but the right practice for the GDPR itself. With the part of the program that is what we call practical assignment that Rita explained before, we support organizations, especially the HR areas, to better improve and increase the ROI from the people that are out there being trained and developing their competences. This is really genuine and important because many times in the past, I was on the other side of the table by having to justify why I should send people to the training, and then HR asking me, okay, but when they are back, can they do something new? Can they improve the service somehow, and how? So the practical assignment, it's the key element to improve and to increase the ROI when it comes down to going and attending a training that is accredited for by EXIN, sorry. Then, together with this, we are going to help employees, professionals, and organizations to increase their efficiency in the product and the service delivered to their customers itself. The engagement with the customer is going to be better because the controls they are out there, they're going to be implemented. But when we talk about how can I say boost the customer engagement and associated with control, they sometimes can make you shiver, but doesn't look like this because controls, it's not or cannot be associated with uh, efficiency reduction itself. This is a bad design control, I would say, because the controls, they would be more likely automated and supporting the business of the organizations. And this is what we are aiming for. And then why to rely on EXIN? This is, I think, one thing that is really important when it comes down to EXIN, because EXIN has a reputation that comes from the 80s. We didn't start doing certifications at this point of time. We didn't just develop according with the trends of the market. Because as I said before, we care for the professionals and organizations. This is in our DNA. This is in our mission. We have millions of certified candidates out there in the market from any part of the world that you can dream about. So our reputation comes since the 80s. We didn't start this business right now, so we are not just an entrepreneur thinking about to develop a new certification because we're going to get loads of money with this. First comes the competences, first comes our mission, later comes the money. We are vendor neutral. We are an institute, so we are not attached to anyone. Doesn't matter what a vendor is talking about or the other vendor is talking about. We are always neutral. If they would like to align with us, that's okay. But hardly we are aligned with the vendors itself based only on one technology. The competencies that are developed by EXIN, they are suitable for any kind of type of vendor. And also, as we are very much international, not only inside EXIN we speak many different languages, because it's really funny when we are at the office. This is not happening for some time due to COVID, but when we are together, everybody, then you can hear different languages between us because this is us. We are a multicultural company. And then also, of course, our exams reflect this part of the EXIN as well. You can do your privacy and data protection exams in many different languages. So it doesn't matter if you live in your own country or not, you can always select the best language that suits you. The exams, especially for the practitioner or professional or expert advanced levels, they will always be based on real scenarios, because we need to validate if you got not only the knowledge, but you have the skills and the competences to solve the organizational issues. So of course, we created like exams that are based on scenarios to try as best as we can your knowledge and skills. And then last but not the least, all our certifications are aligned with the ECF, that is the European Competence Framework. So you can access the ECF website if you want to. Then you can see loads of different competences that are recognized by the European Union. And then everything that we do, we align with the ECF, with the European Competence Framework. And then you can better see which kind of competences will be developed when you are certified by EXIN for every single certification that we offer in the market. So when we talk about EXIN, there are many different aspects that would benefit candidates when being certified by us. So of course, I think it's a normal question when it comes down to, okay, but do I need to be DPO? Do I need to be like just certified as essentials? Which kind of level is appropriated for me? So then we created this table over here. So then you can see, divided by the privacy certifications that we offer, we have the privacy, data protection essentials, foundation, practitioner, and DPO. So for example, let's say that you need to train your workforce to get a glimpse of what GDPR is and what it is the main controls that must be followed. So this is the essentials. Your operational team will handle personal data, but they are not the ones that are going to implement the controls. So we recommend essentials or the foundation. But you are the responsible for implementing the GDPR controls and requirements. So then foundation, practitioner, and then DPO itself, because then it's going to be missing only the information security foundation. You are a business line senior manager, including HR in an organization. We strongly recommend the foundation and the practitioner, but you don't need to go deeper to the DPO route. You are a consultant who implement, when I say consultant, please take these as like the generic way of consultant, because you can be an IT consultant leading this implementation. You can be a marketeer consultant implementing this. You can be a lawyer that is taking the place of a consultant implementing the controls itself. Okay, so the wording consultant over here, it's quite generic as it should be. Who implements GDPR controls and requirements? So then go for the for the DPO route. You are an IT professional who would like to understand GDPR and the impact on business applications and activities. There are loads of them. We're just not taking a deeper look on this. So we recommend at least the essential, but go for the foundation. You were or will be appointed as a DPO. So then go for the DPO. I know that this is quite simple, but at least you can get a quick view about which of our certifications are suitable for which kind of audience itself. So if you'd like to get more information about the Data Protection Officer certificate from EXIN, please access exin.com/careerpath/EXIN Certified Data Protection Officer. And then over there you can find more information or find like brochures and so on regarding to the role-based certification. So I hope you have enjoyed.